From WHYY, it is Hittin season. Hey there, podcast pals. I'm John Stolnis from The Good Fight. You can follow me on X and Blue Sky at John Stolnis. And coming up, we're going to talk about Bryce Harper, the trade rumors. Oh my gosh, so many he's getting traded. Did you guys hear the Phillies going to trade Bryce Harper? It's made him really mad. And so that's what we're going to talk about.
I believe. Yeah. 1-1.
Yeah, that's right. I think he's actually already out the door. So we just kind of have to make sure we say goodbye and turn off the lights. Now we're going to talk about all the brouhaha. Bryce Harper talking to Matt Gelb of The Athletic on Saturday, reacting to Dave Dombrowski, who was reacting to the fan base reaction to his comments at the press conference, reacting to Bryce Harper's season. It's been a real wild, fun 13 days, really, since the end of the season. And so we're going to chat about it here on the podcast, talk about Bryce's comments, where things stand from here. And, a couple other questions as we things that Dave Dombrowski said from his conversation on Foul Territory this week. Joining me on the round table, Justin Klugh and Liz Roscher, of course. Justin Klugh from Baseball Prospectus. He also does a couple of podcasts for our Hittin Season Patreon, Absolutely Hammered and The Dirty Inning. That's at patreon.com/Hittin Season. Follow him on Blue Sky at Justin Klugh. Justin, are you ready? I don't know. We might go Joe Rogan here and do 3 hours of Bryce Harper talk. Are you ready?
I quit.
I'm not ready to be on a show that compares itself to Joe Rogan's. No. This is some Martin Luther King weekend stuff. You know what I mean? Like, it's not even the end of the regular baseball season yet, and we're at trade Bryce Harper levels of discourse. We're having conversations about, like, he said, like, it just feels like, I don't know if this means people ended the season in a particularly warped state, or if we're going to only go crazier from here, because if so, it's a ladder I don't want to climb.
Well,
Justin, you already know the answer.
Yeah. Well, I want to touch on that in just a second. Liz Roscher from Sabres Baseball Research Journal. Follow her on X and Blue Sky at Liz Roscher. Liz, how are you feeling?
Oh, I'm peachy keen jelly bean. I can't believe it's only been 13 days.
I made that number up too. It may be shorter or longer.
Oh, really?
Sure.
Because
it's 13 days.
It sounded both too long and not long enough.
Yeah.
So it's probably
like
just right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm. The fan base is ready for some changes, or they're ready to talk about some changes, or they're ready to hear some writers talk about some changes, and one of those things. I think people are ascribing emotions and reactions to quote unquote the fan base that is not necessarily accurate or true or
right.
Really anything. It's just nonsense. It's just based on, one person's, opinion of the fan base itself. Like, the fan base is reeling. And I'm like, you have no idea. No one does.
I'm kind of reeling. I'm
No, I'm not saying that we shouldn't be or that we aren't.
No,
I'm just saying.
No. Well, here, let's dive into what Bryce Harper told Matt Gelb in The Athletic. I'm sure most of you listening have read the comments, read the story, heard the reports or whatever, but let's give you the quotes. Harper told The Athletic on Saturday, "I've given my all to Philly from the start. Now there's trade talk. I made every effort to avoid this. It's all I heard in D.C. with the Nationals. I hated it. It makes me feel uncomfortable." Let's kind of take these quote by no, let's not do that. Let me give you some more quotes. We'll take it all and we'll address each thing here as we go along. Harper said all players get hurt, talking about his injured wrist and the fact that Scott Boras noted that nowhere in Dave Dombrowski's comments did he mention the fact that Harper missed a month with a wrist injury this year. He said, "I hurt my wrist this year and missed a month. Of course, I don't have full year numbers. It's disappointing to hear me being questioned about my contribution to the team. Just really hurt by that notion because I love Philly so much." And then I know. I think we're going to feel the same way about this. And then he says, "It's disappointing to hear me being questioned about my contribution to the team. I read that already. With regard to the opt-out, I wanted these fans to know Philly is my home. So from the start, I made the commitment to stay here for the rest of my career. No opt-out, even though I was advised otherwise. I trust John Middleton." And he also talked about from changing positions to coming back early from injury, I showed total commitment for my team. And yet there is still trade talk. Now, I have definite feelings about this, but I want to throw it open to you guys first and get your thoughts on Bryce Harper's comments. Liz, let me tee you up first here. Your thoughts now that you've had it's been a couple of days as we're recording here on Monday night since Bryce Harper's comments came out to The Athletic and everything Dave Dombrowski said. Your thoughts?
Bryce Harper really wants to be. He wants to spend his entire career being special. And good for him. He is special, and he will. But he wants the most special of treatment. And unfortunately, dude, you are a baseball player, just like all the others. Not that there are that many, but there's going to be trade speculation. You could do whatever you want to try and cut it off. And honestly, you did. Harper did, a lot of those common sense things that someone would do, or that an agent would suggest if you want to make sure there's no trade talk during your 13-year career in Philadelphia. Like, dude, your expectations are not real. Like, I understand it makes you uncomfortable. Probably makes every player uncomfortable, but it's frustrating to hear him. And I'm sure some of this was fueled by Boris. It's not like Harper needs help, getting all hyped up about a topic. He doesn't need help, but my guess is that Boris is like, and he didn't even mention that you had injured your wrist. Yeah, and Harper's like, he didn't mention that. You're right. Now I'm angrier. So I just wish he would prune his expectations to a real point, to where this bush could exist in reality. Just prune it down so it can exist in reality, because you're just going to be, doesn't matter who does it. Sports talk radio, random person on the street with an earshot of, one of the WIP guys. It doesn't matter. Like, someone says trade, and wow, now there's trade speculation being talked about. Like, it happens. For me, there's a lot frustrating about Harper and some of these comments, but that is really up there. Like, dude, you do not get to have a different experience as a superstar baseball player than everybody else. You just don't. You can't. It's not how it's built.
Well, I don't want this to be the debate, but I think we have spent a lot of time on this show talking about how Bryce Harper is different and does play by different rules because he is a superstar. So I don't know if I agree with that point. I do love that this is all about hurt feelings.
Yeah.
He's not talking to the Phillies. Dombrowski didn't say we're going to trade him. Nobody said anything about it. The highest on the chain you get is like media that overlaps with fandom. So really it's still like fans. So he's talking to the fans. He put out a statement to the fans directly, which I don't know. I'm very entertained and delighted by this almost, because he's like, hey man, like, got talking directly to you people, like talking on Twitter, like maybe not individually, but yeah, I'm talking to you. And, things have been disappointing, but I like this. I worked really hard not to get to this point, and he has. What do we keep saying the word pandering for in regards to Bryce Harper? Because looking back, he looked like he wanted to be able. You could argue he was assembling a body of evidence for him to point to in a moment like this, where he's like, "Hey, where's this coming from? I did all this plus the baseball stuff. Like, what are you coming at me for?" I don't know. I feel like it's a very human moment for him, but I also think we're learning this is a sensitive area for Bryce Harper, a guy who's like, interior we don't know or get too much about. I think we're learning this is a very sensitive spot mentally, whether he realizes that or not, that having trade rumors floating around, he used the word uncomfortable. I think we learned something about him with these quotes about his time in Washington, and ultimately what he was going for here, where he was like, if I do everything perfectly, if I say everything right, every time there's some kind of issue and they come to me and I say, you know what, I get the fans' perspective. I get if they want to boo. I get if they're frustrated. He did everything right. He ate his vegetables. He played the game. And we still got to this point. It took over half of his contract, but we still got to the point where somebody said something, among fans, like word came through among fans that that he was going to be traded. So I think we learned a little bit about his psyche and what makes him tick a little more. And, I wouldn't want to hear that either if I were him. But ultimately, you go back to that quote where he said, I've worked so hard to make Philly my home. And this is our home. Anybody who knows anything knows that a Bryce Harper trade isn't a real thing. Because even if it was, it wouldn't happen unless he traded himself. That's what this all comes down to. Right. So it's not based in reality. But if you're going to make Philly your home, unfortunately, this is part of Philly being your home. So you gotta be prepared for that.
100%.
Yeah, so I think that's all very well said. And I didn't even think about it in that way, that he was actually making a statement to the fans as opposed to Dave Dombrowski. Because you're right, he's smart enough to know Dave Dombrowski didn't say anything about trading him. But what Dave Dombrowski did do in his press conference was challenge Bryce Harper. Because, again, we haven't heard Dave Dombrowski talk about Harper or anyone else like that. We've never heard that kind of direct critique. And it was a gentle critique. I mean, he was still pretty complimentary of heck, you compared him to Freddie Freeman. So, I mean, how much are we really dissing Bryce Harper here with these comments? But it's fair to wonder, and we've said this on the podcast, it's fair to wonder what Bryce Harper we're going to have moving forward. And I think Dave Dombrowski is curious too. I also think he was challenging Bryce Harper to maybe do a little more in the offseason because you're getting older and you want to get a lead again, where you're going to have to do more to take care of your body during the offseason so that you don't get wrist problems and back problems. And he's missed 20% of Philly's regular season games since 2021. That's only going to likely increase as he gets older. So they got to keep him on the field. I think this is all part of a communication message from Dave Dombrowski. And I think, even he did say that he was quoted as saying he was pissed as hell about the Dombrowski comments specifically. So he does seem to have some kind of an issue with what Dave Dombrowski said in the press conference. And the foul territory, it wasn't even a retraction. He walked it back a little bit, but I think Dave Dombrowski stuck to his guns for the most part here. But Bryce Harper doesn't have a right to be upset here at what Dave Dombrowski said. And frankly, the calls for him to be traded are not coming from the Phillies. They're not even, I don't even think sports radio is calling for him to be traded. I think what's happening here is the questions are being asked. If you're going to fix this team, if you're going to change this team, everything has to be on the table, at least considered. Everything has to at least be considered, talked about. How is it that you've gotten to a point now where we can't even broach the subject of trade? Trey Turner's names have come up in trade talks. I don't hear Trey Turner calling anybody or talking to anybody and saying that he's upset about the fan base calling for him to be traded. Certainly Stott and Bohm and Marsh and some of these other guys, the fan base has been talking about everything since the season ended because we're all searching for vehicles for change here, even though we all know Bryce Harper can't get traded. So that felt disingenuous to me. And I think it's a bad look for Bryce Harper, what he's, him saying these things in the press right now. I mean, if I'm Bryce Harper, man, I'm using it as motivation. I'm coming out, I'm using this as I actually, if Bryce Harper's a little ticked off at Philadelphia, at the organization, at the world, good. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with it not being nirvana for Bryce Harper coming into next year. If he come into the season with a chip on his shoulder, I'll take that. Maybe the weight of a World Series, the expectations, maybe remove that monkey and take that off your back and put a different chip on your shoulder. I'm going to show the city, I'm going to show Dave Dombrowski, the fan base, that I've got eliteness left in me. I think that's what Dombrowski wants, frankly. I think he wants a mindset switch for Bryce Harper here. And I felt like the Harper comments came across as a little bit woe is me. It was a little bit kind of not even really understanding the type of season that he had. I mean, Harper, I think, understood that his counting numbers weren't where they should be. And yeah, you look at some of the baseball savant metrics, they're very good. But he was terrible with runners in scoring position. He was terrible with runners on base this year. He seemed over anxious at the plate. He was in the background the entire season. It was a different season. And if he can't see that, I don't know what to tell him. So I love Bryce Harper still. I love the competitiveness. I think at the end of the day, he and Dombrowski and Middleton, they'll get on the same page and things will be better. But frankly, if he comes to spring training a little ticked off next year, I don't think that's a problem at all.
No, and I mean, like we said, Dombrowski, did he say anything that was untrue? No. I think the argument for him being wrong is more about the candidness with which he spoke, which, you know, in all coverage of that press conference was deemed like, I was a little more shockingly, there was a little more clarity there than I think people were expecting
Very frank.
get. Yeah. So, you know, that I think is what winds up being questioned. But even that is like, I don't know, he didn't do it. He didn't say anything that I felt like was worth like requiring an apology or anything, which he didn't do. We didn't do, which, you know, but like still getting a response like that from a player, I mean, that's got to be like so annoying to Dombrowski being like, now I got to go on something else and make a second statement in regards to like, now this is like a thing. And already there's like people acting like the comment I made in the press conference was a shot at Boris and Harper. And like now there's like a thing going on between us. I don't know, maybe there is. But ultimately, even if there was or there wasn't, I would be annoyed that I would have to like go back on another program and explain myself. So if you think the Phillies were kind of a locked up, airtight organization before where this kind of stuff doesn't make it out too often, I can't imagine the door's going to be left unlocked a whole lot more, because this is a level of thing nobody wants to have to deal with. But like you said, John, I don't know. I don't know what to say to Harper. Again, I'm trying to relate to like just this annoying static being in the background, something that really turned you off and made you be in an unpleasant place and not wanting to recreate that in your different workplace. I completely understand that. But yeah, to really like target Dombrowski as though like it required a response, like he was so out of line. I'm with you. I think it was the same thing as like the questionable part of that press conference to me. The weird player call out to me was the Matt Strom thing. Still, that remains the most baffling part of that press conference. This part was just him looking at the numbers and being like, "Yeah, we know Bryce is great. This wasn't super great. Hopefully, he's great again next year." I mean, like we're saying, I don't know what Harper's looking at that makes that seem so much worse. Maybe he's just very sensitive to the year he had, but anybody can go on Baseball Reference and look at his numbers and be like, oh, Bryce had a down year that year. Okay, man, coming back next time and do better. Like everyone thinks you're capable of it. So what are we doing?
844 OPS, and 844 OPS was his lowest since 2016. It was 22nd out of 145 qualified hitters. So that's not a counting stat where you miss a month and it affects your OPS, right? For the time that he was there, that was his OPS. He qualified for enough at bats. 22nd out of 145 is a good season. Yeah. But if that's your superstar, like if that's your guy, if that's your elite guy, it's not quite good enough. And that's all we're talking about here. You know, like his 487 slugging percentage was his lowest since 2016. His weighted runs created was his lowest since 2019. He hit 233 with runners in scoring position, a 762 OPS. With the bases loaded, it was an 800 OPS, but that's still not amazing. And in high leverage situations, he hit 267, but only a 378 slugging percentage. In high leverage situations, he hit the ball on the ground 55% of the time with just a 31% hard hit rate. Like these are some of the other numbers that Scott Boras didn't mention when he was defending Bryce Harper. And I get it. He's Harper's agent. I thought when Boras came out with his statement, I thought that was going to kind of be the end of it.
Same.
I did not expect Harper to then piggyback, and the comment I would have expected from Harper, Liz, is something more along the lines of, hey, I didn't have the kind of season that I wanted. I know all like the typical Bryce Harper comments from the last few years. I know though the fan base a lot more, or the fan base has seen me play at a higher level, and that's what I'm going to strive to get to this offseason. I'm surprised. I really am surprised by his comments. I'm more surprised by his comments than the initial Dombrowski comments.
It feels very beleaguered. You know, it's like, and I can only judge that it's just his life. You know, not even with the Phillies, but just his life in general. He's got a bunch of kids. He's got a wife. He's on the road all the time. He, you know, is playing the sport. He's a superstar. There's so much pressure and so much he has to do. And I feel like some of that is finally catching up to him. You know, you were right that he looked uncomfortable at the plate. He looked anxious. Maybe he's got to take some time and look deeply into his game And maybe I need a mental skills coach, a personal mental skills coach that can actually help me, myself, that is a good fit for just me instead of the whole team. You know, maybe there are other things that he could do, but he sounds beleaguered's the only word I can really think of to come up with. He just sounds like hassled and harried, and he just apparently, despite being a superstar and wanting to be treated as such, I do think that there's some hypocrisy here. He's like, don't talk about me. That's what it really seems like this whole thing was. It's like, don't talk about me. Not even about the season I had, good or bad, but it's, you're making comments and they're not universally good, so don't talk about me.
My PR team didn't approve this. How did this
exactly.
get out?
That's what I'm thinking. It's like it was too honest for him, and I now that I'm talking about it, I think that's it, because he does not like it when honest portraits of himself, honest views of himself get out into the public. And we saw that multiple times this year with the Castellanos clubhouse stuff. I mean, how much do you want to bet the two of them didn't speak for most of the year? I bet they didn't, especially after Castellanos leaked the Manfred stuff. Like, Harper doesn't like anything getting out about himself that he didn't put there himself and that he didn't approve. And so I think that's what a lot of this is about. It's, Dave, you really should have just checked with me. I'm like, no, I'm your boss.
That's the thing. Yes.
I'm your boss, and my boss exactly pays you. And that's so... Right.
Well, and I'll tell you, as somebody who's lived in D.C., and you guys kind of live close, you know, in Maryland, so you're probably familiar with this a little bit as well. But in Bryce Harper's time in D.C., one of the issues when he was very young, because, I mean, remember, he joined the team very young. He's been in the national spotlight since 16. He might be exhausted, frankly, just as
half his life, overall. More than half his life.
Yeah, can't blame him for that. But part of the issue in Washington, D.C. was at the start of his career is that the reports are that he was coddled by the organization, and that like they protected him from everything, and that they created this bubble around him because because he was sensitive to that sort of thing. And then as he got older and he approached free agency, there were no trade talks about Bryce Harper until he was approaching free agency. And then it became a big talking point. Will the Nationals trade him, or where's he going to go in free agency and all that kind of stuff? And I think you're right, Justin. He's done everything he possibly could to avoid a similar scenario coming to Philadelphia. And for the first 7 years, he's done that. This isn't a matter of the fans suddenly don't like Bryce Harper anymore. This is frankly, I don't even think the vast majority of fans want him to be traded. I don't think anybody really wants him to be traded. I mean, there's a couple, probably 1 or 2% sad sacks out there who just don't like him for whatever reason that want him gone. But
just to jump in real quick. This is like when people would say, "I like trade Nola immediately," or people in response to the development in this story saying Dombrowski needs to be fired immediately, which is a comment I saw on The Athletic. So people just, the wrecking ball swings both ways. This is not people saying, I want them traded. They're saying, as they were with Aaron Nola, except now maybe I would change that in regards to Aaron Nola. But the point is, at the time, when they were saying, you got to trade him, what they were saying was, get him away from me. They weren't thinking, this is who we could get, and like breaking it down, like, I have a plan. This is part of a plan. No, they're just mad and saying, what's the baseball form of getting away from me? Oh, trade him. Trade him. Right. That's why they say that. They don't even actually mean it.
I don't want to see or hear from him again.
Right. And if Bryce is getting all this from listening to podcasts and sports talk radio,
stop, Bryce. Don't do that.
He needs to not be doing that. Because
turn off this podcast immediately. Just Bryce Harper. The rest, if you keep listening.
That's right. Because it's not coming from the organization, for sure. And I'm certain that the organization is not reaching, and it's not coming from other organizations. Like, did you know the Phillies are actually asking if it, about it? That's not happening. No. And especially,
you weren't convinced by Joel Sherman's no question mark in response to asking himself if he would be surprised if they traded him?
Right. I mean, that's the funny thing is, and listen, I'm guilty. I saw the Joel Sherman soundbite. We played it on the podcast and we talked about it. He's really the one outside of Philadelphia that kind of glommed onto what Dombrowski said. And I thought,
shocking.
Yeah, I mean, and I think we were all trying to figure out, what is Dombrowski doing here? What is he saying here? What is this all about? And he took it to that place, and so we talked about it. But I mean, anybody who is even slightly clued in understands Bryce Harper was never getting traded. The team doesn't want to trade him. He's going to go to the Hall of Fame wearing a Phillies jersey, and that's what everybody wants. And so it's just people are spitballing ideas on how to change things up here.
I think if you looked into this, I mean, there's obviously a ton of angles, but I feel like you can't ignore the part of this that I think we're all very aware of, which is that, think about how the last 4 seasons have ended, but I mean, like, literally, what was the bus ride like back from the stadium after the Phillies' last game last 4 years? Bittersweetness in 22, stunned silence in 23, sad anger in 24. And then last year, I feel like everybody just kind of reached this point of like eyes darting around, silence, waiting for someone else to say something so they could snap. And Dombrowski kind of said the thing that allowed people to start snapping. And now everybody's looking around, and it's like Harper at the center of it. He's halfway through his deal, no World Series. Harper himself in his career, no World Series. The Nationals won the World Series right after he left. He got on a plane. I think he and his family went to Europe for that World Series because, I would guess he didn't want to be anywhere near it. And it's just, it hasn't been the fix yet to that problem. Now he's 33 and his wrist hurts and he's tired. I think you're right. I think you're just catching people at it's a bad time. That the initial anger may have subsided and people have moved on to the Eagles and there's, VJ Edgecombe and everything. But ultimately, but when it's in regards to the Phillies, it's still a little fresh. So I think we're also catching everybody in not their best time.
Right.
Dombrowski maybe should have waited a couple more days to make his comments. Just because to me, he sounded really raw. Like he just sounded, it was very, not off the cuff, but sort of everyone was digging at a raw nerve that he was trying his best to hide that he was annoyed at.
It was a very specific question Matt Gelb asked, and it was a good question about, what kind of season do you think he had, and do you think that it's the start of maybe a downturn or a downslope in his career?
That's what people are worried about. People want to be told that it's not the beginning of the end for Bryce Harper, and no one can tell them that. So I know there's a lot of frustration coming from that too.
Yeah, I think that's mostly it. Everybody wants him to get back, but he is 33 and his wrist hurts.
It's interesting, too, that Dave Dombrowski reported, Bryce Harper said that Dombrowski never reached out to him after the comments kind of caught on and all that kind of stuff, which, again, he's the boss. He doesn't have to reach out to Bryce Harper. I probably would have if I were Dombrowski. But again, I don't think Dombrowski said anything wrong. He probably didn't feel like he needed to clarify. My guess is they've had a conversation now. Once Bryce Harper made the comments to The Athletic, I would bet, if I'm a betting man, that if the conversation hasn't happened, it will be happening soon. But again, it's just going to be like one of those things like, hey, Bryce, we're not trading you. We love you. I want to see, here's what we want you to do this offseason. And my guess is there's only a handful of people in that organization that can be honest to Bryce Harper and tell him when he's not doing enough, what he needs to improve on, when he needs to do this, when he needs to do that. And I don't think one of them is Rob Thompson. I think it's a very select number of people who have that power in this organization.
I don't know if Dombrowski's one of those people either, because he's not a player. I think Harper wants advice and will take criticism like that from players and coaches. Maybe Rob Thompson, but I think you're right. Their relationship doesn't seem that way. But yeah, he doesn't want Dombrowski's opinion. You're a Hall of Fame manager. Have you picked up a bat?
Yeah, I do think Harper would listen to Dombrowski because Dombrowski's track record is what it is, to say hey, we need more from you. Well, even
if it's not something he would accept, he's his boss. You have to listen to criticism from your boss.
Exactly right. It doesn't really matter if you like it or not, right? I mean, he's your boss. You listen to what he has to say, and I'm willing to bet. I don't have any inside information, but there has to be. This didn't come out of the blue. I just don't think that I don't think this all just kind of came out of nowhere. I mean, it was a different season for Bryce Harper this year. Not a bad season again, but
Makes you kind of wonder who can talk to him that way. And I was like, who is Jason? Who is Bryce Harper's mentor? And I remembered, and then looked up that they wanted Jason Worth to be his mentor in Washington.
Yeah.
Like they brought him in, like that was part of his role there, was to be like, older brother Jason Worth and like introduce him to the league. I know a lot's changed since then, but now I'm curious because I think you're right. I don't know who can talk to Bryce Harper. Honestly, I wonder within the Phillies organization.
Yeah, I was gonna say his wife, but she's not part of the Phillies organization.
It hasn't been an issue up to this point, and it may not be an issue at this point. But it's, again, I don't know that some friction here isn't the worst thing in the world, but it's to be expected given where we are in this timeline with this organization. I think some feathers need to get ruffled a little bit. Comfort zones need to be shaken just a little bit. And I don't know, we'll see if this is maybe good for everybody involved. I do think that one of the things that Scott Boras mentioned in his litany of statistics was, and I think this is something the Phillies would like to address this offseason in order to help Harper out, but I don't know exactly how they're going to do it, is, again, we've talked about getting him another right-handed power hitter in the middle of that lineup. They just don't have one. And the number that Scott Boras threw out was the number of pitches that Bryce Harper sees in the strike zone. Last year, he saw just under 43% of pitches in the strike zone, which was the lowest of any hitter in Major League Baseball, I think, with at least 200 plate appearances. The next lowest was 45.8. So, I mean, by significant amount, Harper was below the next lowest person. And generally speaking, during the course of the year, he had Alec Boehm hitting behind him, or he had Nick Castellanos, or Brandon Marsh for different parts of the season. They just, no threat, to Bryce Harper anywhere else in this lineup after the number 3 spot, where you couldn't say, yeah, I'm not going to give Harper a whole lot to hit. It was noted, Scott Lauber, I think, noted this, but there was a portion of this season from April 11th to May 27th, which is like 6 weeks, where Schwarber was hitting behind Bryce Harper in the lineup, and Harper still only saw 44% of pitches in the zone. It was like 1 percentage point higher. Teams were still pitching around Bryce Harper. And I don't know who the Phillies can go out and get here. There's no right-handed hitting power outfielder. Like, that would be the easiest solution. Nobody out there. I don't even know if there's anybody out there in trade. Like, you can look at all the different players who could be available in trades, like even like a Joe Adell or something. They're not money cleanup guys, right? I mean, there's just, maybe those guys pop and have a guy like that pops and has a good season, but Taylor Ward, I mean, that's not the solution, right? That's not the answer. So I don't know that there's one out there. And I guess my question to you, Justin, is it important? Like, will that help Harper? I just think it'd be good for the lineup overall, but I don't know that it necessarily means Harper gets more and better pitches to hit. I think Harper just needs to be more selective. He's already pretty selective, but he needs to be more selective and just take his walks and let the guys behind him hit.
Yeah, I think before you start, and again, the Phillies could benefit from the kind of move you're talking about. Obviously, the question becomes who, but those are the kind of details we get into more so in December and January, not October. So yeah, I think that's something that could easily be a boon for this team, and we've seen them make moves that are unexpected, and that's a great way to go. But as far as like using that as like, okay, we fixed Bryce Harper, or this is our plan to fix Bryce Harper. Everything we were just talking about, that entire first conversation, lends more to the idea that there's some interior work to do with Bryce Harper, which I think is going to wind up being more important than whoever else you put in the lineup around him. That obviously can be a benefit, but I think there's some work to do here based on, whatever whispers you hear about, discomfort or changes in the wind in the Phillies locker room, or just, culturally or mentally where his head's at. Just everything about his approach this year seemed to indicate that, like, yeah, this is a guy who was really good and right now is not, playing well at all, or at close to the level that he used to play at. And he missed some time with injury, but I think he's got to get himself right, because there's every quote he's given like this, he's stepping out of line to be like, hey, I have something to say on this. We're getting a window into his exact kind of thought process here, and I think there's some stuff to work out on the inside before you start thinking like, let's make a big swing and get a guy that'll ensure Bryce sees more strikes. Again, that can help, But I think phase one is going to be like you got to make the adjustments you need to make to be the most effective ball player, and reach your ceiling. And then we can start thinking about like what are the boosts we can give you based on like who's around you. Like that's going to be way more critical for his success next year.
Well, and that's what I've sort of been worried about. We are learning a lot about Bryce Harper and have over the last couple of weeks. But one thing I would love to know is, what does being a superstar mean to him long term? Just sort of in a mental way. Does being a superstar mean that they're always going to have what it takes on the inside to make themselves better? Because I feel like there might be a philosophy difference here. You know, if Harper, none of us know how open Harper is to like help and whatnot. But if he believes like a superstar is a self-sufficient, entity, he might not be accepting help from anybody. And that's an issue because he definitely needs help. He needs to listen to other people. We've mentioned some of the issues he had during the year, or if he, it would be good if he believed that a superstar is, a conglomeration of yourself and all of the help you get, that your talent is elevated at the start, but is built upon over the years with, more help and advice. I've always wondered that, because we had this conversation a lot about Ryan Howard and whether or not, like, why are you still swinging at these pitches? Are you listening to anybody? Because people are definitely telling you things. Are you listening? And I've just been thinking about that with Harper a lot. And I think next year we'll see. We'll find out more whether or not he's listening to anybody or whether he's continuing to just sort of retreat into his own head of superstardom.
Which is pretty close to what Dombrowski said. So I would expect, another statement from Bryce Harper in the coming days.
Well, I mean, I'm just looking at some of the options in free agency. Again, there's no outfielders. I mean, there's two lefties. There's Kyle Tucker, and there's
possible.
What?
I don't know.
How is it possible? There used to be players to acquire, and it feels like last year, this year, where they're just like there are no outfielders. That's impossible. There's tons of outfielders.
So
but then you look at the list, and you're like,
there's no outfield. I don't like to poach information from other Phillies podcasts, but I did listen to the Matt Gelb Phillies Therapy podcast, because he did say something on the podcast, because they did some research on right-handed outfielders, which I thought was interesting. And I don't have the exact numbers or figures, so I'm going to just kind of paraphrase it. It's going to be a loose number, but he looked at like all the different right-handed outfielders, just who played in the majors this year, who accumulated at least, I think it was like 400 plate appearances or 350 plate appearances. There are essentially 26 right-handed hitting outfielders in baseball this year. Just total, not available in free agency or trade, not like who had an OPS at least 750, just in total, 26 right-handed hitting outfielders this year, of which none are available in free agency right now, and you probably can't trade for any of them, if not many of them. Or what. So just in baseball right now, the lack of right-handed hitting outfielders in baseball is stark. And the Phillies are saying goodbye to two of them, in Nick Castellanos and Harrison Bader at the moment. So it's like the Phillies had two, but it still didn't work because one of them just couldn't hit anyway, and then the other one, we'll see if he comes back or not. But like there's a lot of lefties out there, a lot of left-handed hitting outfielders, but this is a lineup that needs a right-hander. And so
yeah, they've got a lot of lefties.
They do. And so adding Kyle Tucker is great. I don't know, does that fit with what they need? Does Cody Bellinger fit with what they need? This Japanese guy, Menutaka Murakami, does he fit? Trent Grisham, does he fit? I don't know that they do. I mean, so then you're looking at like, okay, if you want to get a right-handed bat in here, you got to move somebody. Alec Boehm's got to go somewhere else. And then you're basically saying like, okay, we're going to pay Alex Bregman $40 million a year over 5 years. Like, they're not doing that. They're not doing that. I can't imagine the Phillies are doing that. Bo Bichette is going to get like $35 million a year. I just don't see it. Pete Alonso doesn't fit unless you don't sign Kyle Schwarber, and then you're still looking for another major hitter after that. So that doesn't really help you a whole lot. I mean, Eugenio Suarez could be a possibility if they move Alec Boehm, but because I don't think he's going to break the bank. But I don't think they want to go down that road. Otherwise, they would have probably pursued something like that at the trade deadline this last summer. So I don't know what the solutions are, but this is why Dave Dombrowski gets paid the money we don't get.
Exactly.
He's got to get creative this offseason. I just don't know. I mean, unless you guys know something else, I don't. Seiya Suzuki from the Cubs, here's a thought. Would the Cubs do like Bryson Stott for Kaya Suzuki straight up? Suzuki's on the last year of his deal. If you're the Phillies,
did you want to call him? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Based on the situation you just described, where there's just not a lot of that talent around that hits from that particular side of the plate, that's the kind of deal you got to be open to. But like, what is there a lot of in baseball right now? Is this like another golden age of shortstops? Are we just in one of those again, where it's just? I mean, I think that's what they're looking at it as. Like it's Lindor and Henderson and a bunch of other guys. They were comparing it to like back when A-Rod and Jeter and Nomar were around, and like there was a big three. What's there a lot of? What's there to capitalize on right now? So you're not flipping over rocks looking for players who don't exist. Oh, great.
No, I mean,
even better.
I think right now there's a decent crop of third basemen. I do think there's a decent crop of shortstops. But yeah, I mean, there's just not a lot of. I mean, there's a lot of good outfielders, just all left-handed. Again, like there's a lot of good left-handed hitting outfielders out there. There's
not a lot of right-handed hitting outfielders. There's not a lot of catchers in general.
Now, catching is always in short supply.
Yeah, it's kind of unique to the Phillies. It's the era of baseball we're in, and the kinds of players who are available and that are just plentiful or not plentiful throughout baseball really aligns with the Phillies' issues right now with like catcher, outfield. Guess what? Justin Crawford hits left-handed. So,
crap.
And he doesn't hit for power. There's no power.
You're just waiting for like one of these guys that when they're acquired, everyone goes like, oh, I don't know about that. Like a polarizing acquisition who just kind of falls into the role of right-handed bat that like protects Bryce Harper. Look at that. I'm already forgetting his name. It's like he was
Bryce
never
Howard.
here at all.
No, let's go with Bryce Howard. Let's put money.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to trying to like, once the World Series is over and like working out exactly like, okay, when if the Phillies were to have a plan, what would it even look like? Because there are a couple of areas to address, and now you have this like disgruntled Bryce Harper thing dominating the news, and I don't know. I mean, I almost feel like it almost feels like a futile exercise to try and talk about how to fix this team after 4 years of them being a playoff team, and it's like you're trying to go and plug a hole while like another one pops up over here, and like you're just very quickly running out of fingers, and also you're not really stopping anything because the problems the Phillies have in the postseason, they're like momentary, like problems that happen in an instant, and even when you fix them, even when you get better at your chase rate and you're like your approach is better, that still doesn't mean it's going to stay that way through the postseason, or that you're going to win the World Series, or that you're going to lose the World Series for a totally other reason. So, at a bat, that's kind of like where you're at a bat for this outfield. That continues to be a problem. Make sure Bryce Harper's, okay mentally. Castellanos is gone. Be open to trade just about everybody, and know that, sooner or before, a lot sooner than you think, this rotation is probably going to be an issue too. So you're probably going to need to make some kind of adjustment there as well. I don't know, like as far as like what exactly those moves are going to be. I mean, good luck, decision makers, because like you said, John, there's a reason we're not getting paid to do this.
Yeah.
God, listen. Yeah.
I was going to say it's like you've seen those horrific puzzles that are all one color. Everyone's seen those terrible puzzles that are all one color, or they've got two designs, one on the front, one on the back. I felt like Dombrowski has had a bag of the same color puzzle pieces and has been trying to put the puzzle together correctly for the past handful of years. Because I think we'd all agree they have the parts they need, but he continues to put the puzzle pieces together and they're not quite right because it's all one color and you can't really tell.
People are
so maybe this time
blind to this team. Like the complaints being now, I'm not. Trust me, this is not me saying, "Oh, people need to stop and be grateful of the era we're in."
No.
Like, no, I'm not suggesting
that's for later.
I'm just saying there is a blindness at this point where like people think the best move is to throw all of the puzzle pieces off the table and start a new puzzle, whereas clearly having the pieces we have, it's like, you know, just 1, 2, 3 pieces shy, and also like, you know, in some cases a gust of wind shy of like what you were ultimately aiming for. Like you're right up there. And what's going to be the unique challenge of this offseason is figuring out how much of the problem is what's here and needs to go, and how much of the problem is are things that are not here currently, and then finding a way to like straddle that line between like what's strong about this team, because there's a lot that works. Obviously, they keep going to the playoffs, but there's obviously not enough to get you through that. So like, what is it? And yeah, you know, after year 4, I'm willing, and this conversation about Bryce Harper, I'm willing to start thinking a little more about like this team's mental approach. Whatever that is, you know, I don't think it's one thing, like one approach. It's just like the general mental state in the postseason doesn't seem to be working, because they prove how good they are every year. They win at different points. They've tried like, you know, oh, we're going to win the division, the wild card, hot at the beginning, hot at the end. You know, it's all gone different ways, and it's all ended pretty much the same way. And maybe you want to say that the opposition had a role in that, and each year, you know, like we ran into this team and they were hot, or this team and they were better. But the Phillies are better than most of the teams in baseball for like the entire regular season. So what changes when they hit the postseason? And it's got to be, in my mind at this point, it's just got to be like a mental thing. Again, it's not like one mental thing. Like, we got to just get rid of that idea and they'll be fine. It's just maybe it's approach. Maybe it's the thing I was giving them so many flowers for leading up to the postseason. But like mentally they get there and their brains just scramble. And the moments that were big moments for them in the regular season don't happen.
Well, and I think Rob Thompson's attitude plays into that too, because he turns into a different manager in the playoffs. I'm still baffled by some of the decisions he made, you know, and maybe they need, I don't know how teams have been doing, you know, mental skills and sports psychology, but I don't see a problem with having hire an entire fleet. I've seen the Phillies, you know, staff page. They've got enormous departments. They can afford at this point to create a mental skills department and make it a little bigger, you know, than you might want to. Hire a couple of people. Make sure one goes on every road trip with them. Talk about, have like a 10-minute discussion before, you know, a game starts about, all right, this is what we want to keep in mind today. You know, or this is what you want to keep in mind today. You know, how could something like that hurt? If the players don't like it, tough crap. That's the way it is, man.
Well, since none of that's going to happen, though, I do think that the Phillies' conclusion there is like, yeah, you got to just build the strongest team possible, because this team is close. And like, you can put all that stuff I was just talking about aside, because if you're getting there and with these, you know, these struggles in the postseason, these abstract, ambiguous struggles in the postseason keep haunting you, then your only choice is to kind of keep knocking on the door, and really only going to do that by going out there and being like, all right, where is this right-handed hitter we need? Is it a free agent we're willing to pay for and sit through some, you know, more down years? Is there another guy in his 30s we want to lock up to a bunch of years? Is there a trade for, like, say, a Suzuki that we think Dave can pull off? You know, this is, just keep giving yourself the chance. Like, that's really your only option. Because if the problem is we just forget everything once we get to the postseason, you know, that can be solvable. And with the right amount of movements, you know, you can find the change you need to correct that issue, as formless as it feels.
Let's kind of just jump on a couple of quick things other things that Dave Dombrowski said in the foul territory comments, which, by the way, Dave Dombrowski going on foul territory for his clarification. It's a fine podcast network, but it just shows you the changing media landscape here in the sports world. On Zach Wheeler, he's going to be in Philadelphia all winter, reporting no pain. So he feels great. He said that the surgery should have cleared it up so that this should not be an issue moving forward. The timing given to them was 6 to 8 months at the time of the injury. So he said, we're hopeful it'll be on the front end, which would get him ready for opening day. So obviously that's great news. And, getting Zach Wheeler back and having him healthy at the start of the season would be a huge boost to everyone. My question is, would the Phillies be smart to kind of play it slow with Wheeler and push him back to May, even if he is kind of ready for opening day? If for nothing else, then to kind of, he's 36, it's going to be 37 or something like that. Like to have him, he seemed to wear down at the end of this year. Now, that could have been, again, the thoracic outlet syndrome and the blood clot and all that kind of stuff. But I'm wondering if we're reaching a point with Wheeler where if we maybe want to save some bullets for October, maybe what you do is you just start him a month late. It's like, hey, listen, there's no need. They don't really need him to be making the opening day start. You know what I mean? Like if he misses April, I think this team survives that just fine. And they can kind of do like the Dodgers did this year with several of their starters, just kind of slow play it and make sure that the express train in October is rocking and rolling. Liz, what do you think? Should the Phillies kind of slow play it a little bit, or if he's ready opening day, let him go?
I'd say let him go. I think you're playing with fire a little bit, especially if you're trying to model yourself after the Dodgers, who had two guys, Blake Snell and Tyler Glasnow, miss an enormous amount of time. Like Blake Snell made a couple of starts and then was out till August. And then Tyler Glasnow missed 3 entire months. I don't know what a month is really going to do for him. You want to save bullets, then you need to have him skip a start here or there. But I don't know if a month is going to help, especially if he feels ready to go. Then you're just you're making him sit and he's antsy. He wants to get out there. He wants to pitch. He wants to help his team, especially after the way his last season ended. So I think it does more harm than good, maybe mentally for him to keep him in, to prevent him from starting. Especially since I don't think the benefit's going to be that great.
I think it would be smart to ease him back in. This is a different kind of issue. I think this was a very this isn't like, oh, he had the kind of surgery. It's like going through the routine that you've seen countless other players go through. Like this was something a lot more serious than that. Ended his season abruptly, and like with the added benefit of, you're saying don't model yourself after the Dodgers. My first thought was like, boy, you can make 11 regular season starts like Blake Snell and still be like a playoff absolute killer. To me, that kind of idea just getting like presented and legitimized this year by the Dodgers made me think, why not give him a month, a soft month to start the year, and you can cut him out of a start, along the way anytime you want. He's not going to enjoy that, and he's probably not going to enjoy sitting out April either. But if you've got like a full strength Zach Wheeler in October, I'd rather have that than in August, and then by October, who knows what's going on in his shoulder and his arm, like from just general wear and tear from being over 35 years old. So yeah, I can see that working, and having just lost to the team that succeeded in doing that with some of their key pitchers, it gives it some appeal for sure.
Yeah, and I agree. I don't have a problem.
I just
want to
say I don't know if the Dodgers. I just say I don't know if the Dodgers did that. I don't know if they slow played them intentionally. They were legitimately injured during the year and then happened to come back in time for the playoffs. It seems evilly planned, and it could be, but it also is a legitimate thing that could just have happened.
I don't think they did that, nor do I think I said that they did that on purpose. But yeah, I'm saying you can have a pitcher miss a bunch of time and then actually see the benefits of that on the back end, because it feels like it does backfire a lot. But like we said, everyone was thinking we were going against this Dodgers team that you just get past the starter and into the bullpen, and it turned out they were like fully weaponized for the first time. And letting Zach Wheeler have like an easy schedule leading into the season so that he's stronger at the end of it. Suddenly I've seen an example of that totally worked for somebody. So I'm like, hey, yeah, let's why not give that a shot?
Yeah, I agree with Liz. I think in a way that, the Dodgers, they kind of lucked into this. They did slow play Ohtani, but again, Ohtani was coming off of Tommy John, and so they wanted to ease him in as well. I do think a month would help though. I guess my point is, let's not accelerate the timeline to get him ready for opening day. You know what I mean? Like if he's moving along and he's ready for opening day, then okay, I get it. And I think they would be wise to kind of limit his pitches during the course of the season to keep him fresh for October. But I would certainly not approach this offseason with like opening day's the goal. Like just roll along, get it taken care of, make sure he's okay. And if he misses a month, if he misses 3 weeks, he misses 6 weeks, you can handle it. You can deal with it. They should have enough starting pitching to cover it for that length of time. Even though I do agree, starting pitching might be, the depth might be a little bit more of an issue here in 2026 than it was in 2025. Last thing, Dave Dombrowski said on the payroll, we know this is a real big wintertime for us. We've been talking about this for weeks, and I've proposed something to John Middleton that he's given me an approval on, so I know where my payroll is, and it's still a very hefty payroll. Now, I'm curious what that means to you guys. It means to me, he's like, he's given me a plan. He's got a plan in place that he's got an approval on. So I don't know if that plan is just a payroll number or if Dave has some, some sauce cooking in the back somewhere. Like he maybe has, because last offseason, they didn't have a plan. It didn't seem to me. Like Dave Dombrowski came out of the offseason just like, I don't know, nothing happened. And, so we got Max Kepler and Jordan Romano, and we did trade for Luzardo, and that was kind of a surprise. We didn't really think that was going to happen because we wanted Garrett Crochet, but, here's Max and Jordan, things happen. We didn't make... I hope that they do more this offseason because last offseason was awful. But, Justin, it sounds like, he's got a plan, maybe?
Well, maybe the plan was clear last year and we just didn't like what the plan was because it certainly felt like investing in bounce back candidates. Saw enough of that to be a pattern. And, obviously in some cases it worked better than others. This year, I don't think you're going to get a hint of an actual plan. I think you could almost read this as like he had the amount of money he wants payroll to be approved, not a particular plan that gets it up to that level. But you could also read it as he constructed like a 10-part trade concept and wanted John Middleton's green light on it. I think what he's saying here is that, we know this is a real big winter time for us, is telling, the fans, like, yeah, we recognize that change may be necessary and that, he doesn't like to talk about windows closing, but that like, 4 for 4. In some serious attempts. We realize this is putting people in some kind of mood. And then he starts talking about, I'm proposing something to him that's giving me approval on it. I mean, that just sounds like, I don't know, it just legitimizes the, like, I want to do something, I want to do something. And that's about as specific as he can probably get at this point because there could be a whole big plan in place. And if it never comes to fruition, obviously, you don't want out. We'll never know how big of an idea the Phillies have had the last few winters if they had plans that just like didn't come together. And the biggest deals that Dombrowski has made have been deals that nobody really forecasted like too accurately or ahead of time. So I think what he's saying here is I'm prepared to have the kind of winter you want to have, but I'm going to speak of the ambiguities that don't guarantee any of the things you want are going to happen. Because this could be a pretty different looking team on opening day. It could be a very similarly looking team on opening day.
Liz, what did you think? Anything different?
I think that what he presented to Middleton was a payroll number that includes what he wants that's already on the team and like a number, like this is how much I want to get however many of these guys and nothing more than that. Yep. I'm sure he has an idea of who he wants already. I'm sure he knows exactly who he wants to keep and who they're, letting go. But I don't think it's anything more specific than that because only a fool puts together like a plan for the MLB offseason that is just one plan.
I'll say this too. Yeah, I agree with you. And there's 2 off seasons here. One that Kyle Schwarber resigns and one where he doesn't. And there's like gonna be 2. It's like a crossroads off season, and that's gonna,
it's a fork.
So the Schwarber decision will determine a lot. I will say too, the Phillies paid a ton of money in luxury tax this year. A ton of
How much
tens
is
of
a ton?
millions of dollars. It's like tens of millions of dollars. I think there was like 50 or 60 million in luxury tax money alone that they paid this year just in pure cash. You don't want to, like, if you're going to pay luxury tax money, don't do it on Max Kepler. Don't do it on Jordan Romano. Don't do it on injury guys that you're hoping to come back. Because if you're gonna spend luxury tax money, and you know you're gonna have to spend over on certain players, then get real guys. Don't do the wing and a prayer signings that you're gonna pay double on. That's just stupid. It's like going to a yard sale and offering to pay double for whatever it is they're trying to sell you. Like, don't do that. So if you're gonna maintain a payroll over the luxury tax, make sure they're good players. That's my advice, anyway.
Make sure
I could
they're
not
good.
agree strongly.
That's our advice to
agree.
Dave Dombrowski. Acquire players, and this time, you know what? Just for fun, make sure they're good.
That's right. I feel the phone call to help out in the front office is coming any day now.
Yeah, it's right there.
My phone's ready. All right, let's finish up with some final thoughts. Justin, you go first.
Turning in what I believe are the last round of proofs on Summer of the Cheap Wieners, available February 2026. February 1st,
awesome.
2026. So,
I'm so excited about it.
Check out my Blue Sky page, or just go to the Brookline Books website. You can find Summer of the Cheap Wieners, the story of what the 1941 Phillies were doing while Joe DiMaggio was making history. It's currently available for pre-order on the Brookline Books site. And I'm sure we'll be talking about that plenty in the months ahead. So please pick up a copy of my book if you should choose.
We're closer to February than we've ever been.
That's
That's
right.
true.
Brookline
Every day it
Books,
gets
it's
closer
awesome.
and closer.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good Christmas present for the baseball fan, for the Phillies fan in your life. Absolutely. All right, Liz, any final thoughts?
I just want to tell a quick little story that popped up in my feed today. The head of the Assyrian Church of the East visited well-known Chicago White Sox fan, His Holiness Pope Leo, today, and gave him a Cubs jersey. He looks less than thrilled to be accepting it. We know that he's a diehard White Sox fan, but it turns out that the head of the Assyrian Church is from Chicago as well, and gave him a Cubs jersey just to have a little fun with him in the literal Vatican. I'm going to come visit you in your home, this ancient home. Yep, the Pope. And I'm going to bring you a Cubs jersey as a little, let's have some funsies. I'm a non-practicing Catholic. I've been away from the church for a number of years, but that still tickles me to death. I don't know a non-practicing Catholic who isn't still vaguely obsessed with the church that they have stepped away from, and I'm one of them. And so I'm just sort of obsessed with the idea of an American baseball fan Pope. Just in general, just like living in the Vatican, walking around, talking to people. Like, what do? You have small talk. What are you watching the White Sox? Who do you talk to the White Sox about? What a mysterious life. And I hope he takes that. I hope he takes that Cubs jersey and burns it.
Yeah, he has no love for the Cubs. Wasn't he? He was outside and somebody yelled "Go Cubs" and he was like, "They lost." In response, like he's not taking that from anybody. Yes, it was not in English. I mean, I don't know what it was.
Right. Good.
Just great.
Probably Italian or whatever the language.
That's right. All right, everybody, that's going to do it for this edition of Hittin' Season. Make sure that you guys are checking out the WHYY YouTube page. It's where you can find the podcast if you want to watch us on your smart TV or on your computer. Again, WHYY, just subscribe to their YouTube page. You'll find us there. Also, we're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever it is you get your podcast. Stay with us all off season. We'll be back with any news that breaks, and we'll be checking in from time to time as well, pretty much certainly every week, and if not more often than that, as we take you through this Phillies offseason. We will see if, Aaron Nola talks to a reporter this week and just rips the Philly fan base or whatever. So lots can happen still.
Don't put that out there.
Happen.
Oh, you've done
Aaron.
Do it.
Let's do it.
We need
that'll
the
be a fun week.
That will be a fun week. Well, let's
actually hold 2 hours for the episode.
Let's all keep a good thought for that as we until we talk next time here on Hittin' Season.